Welcome to Lesson 3.17, Securing Information Processing Facilities, Equipment, and People. In your Candidate Information Bulletin, we are in the Security Engineering domain. We are in Key Area of Knowledge K, which is Design and Implement Physical Security. Our topics are going to include a facilities risk assessment, data center location, floor access controls, power systems, environmental controls, fire protection, safety plans, and drills. So in the last unit, we looked at secure principles applied to physical security. Now we're actually going to look inside the facility, inside our data center, in our work areas, and apply those principles. So our information processing facilities, such as data centers, server rooms, and wiring closets, are generally considered a critical asset. And just like every other critical asset in our organization, we should be doing periodic risk assessments. A facility risk assessment can include an asset valuation. It will include the identification of threats and vulnerabilities. It will include an understanding of controls and a determination of residual risk. And in determining that residual risk, we'll once again look at impact and likelihood of occurrence. The same concepts that we applied to an information security or information technology risk assessment, we're going to apply to a facilities or a physical security risk assessment. Our facilities risk assessments can be qualitative, meaning descriptive, or quantitative, having a dollar value. So an important consideration is the location of our data center. Our data center, or equivalent, this might be a server room or even a server closet, should be strategically located. Whenever possible, it should be located in the center of a facility with no external windows or doors. And we're trying to locate this data center, which is going to have our servers, it's going to have media that holds critical information, it might have our firewalls. We want to make sure that it's really well protected. So we want to ensure that it's in a place where there's not easy access for an intruder. So if we locate it in the center of a facility with no external windows or doors, we're going to impede entry. Whenever possible, we want to have our data center located on floors other than the basement. The basement will have a tendency to flood. The first floor, which is ease of access, or the top floor. You want to have full walls extending from floor to ceiling. You don't want to have a drop ceiling in your data center. You want to ensure that there's no easy access into the data center. And you want to have a non-partitioned ceiling. The floor that the data center is on, or any other floors that have secure workspaces, you want to have floor access controls. So elevators and stairwells can incorporate security features to control and prevent unauthorized floor access. You might see that with a keypad code that you have to execute to get on a floor or even in an elevator, or an RFID card access in which the elevator call buttons won't register until an authorized card is detected. But you should be paying special attention to any floor that the data center is located on, or you have any other type of secure wiring room or secure work areas. We also need to be thinking about power systems. This is an environmental control, but all of our systems require power. So a primary source should be a dedicated feed from a utility station or power grid. Again, this is whenever possible. We also want to be concerned with electromagnetic EMI or radio frequency interference RFI, because both will disrupt power flow and can cause fluctuation. EMI is caused by the generation of radiation that's caused by the difference between three wires, hot, neutral, and ground. So examples include lighting and electric motors. RFI is created by components of an electrical system. Examples include electrical cables and fluorescent lights. So our protective disruption measures include line conditioning, grounding, cable shielding, and limited exposure. Voltage fluctuations are caused by power excess, degradation, or loss. So voltage fluctuation measures include voltage regulators, line conditioners, UPSs, and generators. We also need to be thinking about our environmental control systems, because high humidity can cause corrosion and low humidity can cause excess static electricity. Relative humidity between 45 and 60 is acceptable for areas that are processing data. The optimal temperature for an area containing computing devices is between 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 74 degrees Fahrenheit. But damaging temperature, in particular for magnetic storage, is 100 degrees Fahrenheit and above. Human static controls include anti-static flooring, proper grounding, static-free carpeting, and anti-static wristbands. Again, as an information security professional and as a CISSP candidate, you're not expected to be an environmental control specialist. This is yet another area where you want to collaborate with those who are experts in their field. Now, that could be folks that are internal, or it could be external service providers and partners. We always have to be concerned about fire, so in every environment we want to have fire protection. Fire protection is comprised of three elements. Fire prevention, which is your first line of defense. So we build facilities that are designed for fire prevention, and we ensure that we don't store flammable liquids or other flammable elements in an area certainly near our servers or in our data center. So we want to put all the controls in place we can to prevent a fire from happening in the first place. Fire detection is the realization that there is a fire. Now, fire detection types include a smoke detector, a heat detector, or flame-activated detectors. Fire suppression and fire containment is responding to the fire. Our fire suppression systems include water, gas discharge, and chemical discharge. Now, you want to be well aware of what you have in your server room so that you understand what the impact would be to the equipment there if, in fact, the fire suppression system did activate. And lastly, we have safety plans and drills. When an emergency occurs, human life and safety is paramount. We can replace servers, we can replace data, but we can't replace human life. So when an emergency occurs in a physical plant, human life and safety always has to take precedent over everything else. Safety plans, including evacuation routes and safe locations, should be posted and personnel trained on where they are and how to get there. Meeting places should be pre-assigned. So when we're doing an evacuation, there should be pre-assigned meeting places so that attendance can be taken and we can be assured that everyone has safely evacuated the building, or if they haven't, we can let our responders know. Evacuation, shelter-in-place, and lockdown drills should be conducted on a scheduled basis. Evacuation is when we leave the building. Shelter-in-place and lockdown drills will be when we remain in the building, generally in designated areas. In the event of an evacuation, a shelter-in-place, or a lockdown situation, there should be plans that include procedures for securing the data center facilities. So let's be clear, even though we have procedures for securing data center facilities or any other critical assets, they should never take precedent over securing human life and safety. Let's review Lesson 3.17. We started out talking about a facilities risk assessment and how it very much mirrors what you already know about an information security or an information technology risk assessment, and that they can be quantitative or qualitative. We discussed where a data center should be located inside a building, floor access controls, power systems, environmental controls, fire protection, including prevention, detection, suppression, and containment, and then safety plans and drills. In previous versions of the CISSP exam and the Common Body of Knowledge, physical security was its own domain. In April of 2015, physical security domain was eliminated, so you won't be expected to have the same depth of knowledge about physical security that was required in earlier examinations. You will be expected, however, to have a high-level understanding of physical and environmental controls. So let's do a Lesson 3.17, Match the Meaning. This is the last lesson in this domain. The terms you need to be familiar with are EMI, RFI, RFID, shelter-in-place, lockdown, and evacuation. So take a few minutes, do your best to match the meaning, and then come on back and we'll talk them through. Welcome back. Let's look at our 3.17 terms. EMI is electromagnetic interference. RFI is our radio frequency interference. Both of those can cause power fluctuations. RFID was our radio frequency identification. Now that's not one that we talked in depth, other than it could be an elevator control, or we could use it as a floor control. But it's one of those terms that if you don't know exactly, you want to try to get the closest answer that you can. Shelter-in-place is to remain at a location emergency protocol. Lockdown, again, is a secured facility emergency protocol. And evacuation is an immediate and orderly departure. So we're going to end this lesson with our CISSP exam tips, remembering that EMI and/or RFI disrupt power flow and can cause fluctuations, that high humidity can cause corrosion, and low humidity can cause excess static electricity. And above all else, safety first. Human life cannot be replaced. So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you at our lesson review.